Most women don't miss cheating because they're naive. They miss it because they're listening for the wrong things. They're waiting for obvious proof, a message on his phone, a strange perfume, a clear confession. But betrayal rarely begins with evidence. It begins with language. When a man is unfaithful, his routine might stay consistent. He may still come home on time. His affection might not disappear immediately. He may still hold your hand. He may still say, "I love you," but his language changes. Long before proof appears, his words begin to shift. His tone tightens. Defensiveness arrives earlier than it should. Certain phrases repeat themselves with unusual intensity. And if you've ever felt something was off but couldn't explain why, this is where clarity begins. Because intuition doesn't usually respond to facts, it responds to patterns. Speech pattern 1. Defensive language that attacks your intuition. When a man starts cheating, or even emotionally drifting, the first shift isn't physical, it's psychological. And psychology leaks through speech. You say something simple, calm, non-accusatory. Something feels different lately. And instead of curiosity, instead of reassurance, instead of calm engagement, he responds with, "You're overthinking. You're being dramatic. Why are you always suspicious? You're crazy." At first, it sounds dismissive, maybe even casual. Maybe he says it with a small laugh. But repetition is where truth lives. A loyal man may feel confused by your concern. He may ask questions. He may try to understand what you're feeling. A guilty man feels threatened by it because your intuition feels too close to exposure. So instead of addressing your discomfort, he attacks your credibility. Notice how quickly it escalates. You haven't accused him. You haven't presented evidence. You haven't raised your voice. You simply sensed distance. Yet suddenly, you're defending yourself, explaining why you're not crazy, apologizing for overreacting. That's how language becomes controlled. Not through shouting, not through aggression, through consistency. A secure man can tolerate uncomfortable questions. He doesn't crumble under curiosity. But a man hiding something reacts as if you've already uncovered it. His tone sharpens, his patience shrinks, his body stiffens, and he flips the focus. "Why don't you trust me? What's wrong with you lately? You're pushing me away acting like this." These aren't questions seeking understanding, they're shields. And here's what most women miss. He may sound sincere. He may even look hurt. His voice may crack. But emotion does not equal innocence. Guilt often speaks passionately because passion distracts from logic. Intensity can silence you faster than truth. One defensive reaction could be stress, but repeated defensiveness around harmless questions, that's a pattern. And patterns don't lie. Because when a man feels secure, he protects the relationship. When he feels exposed, he protects himself. And once defensiveness becomes normal, something quieter and even more revealing begins to happen.
Comparison, justification, and rewriting reality. After defensiveness becomes normal, another pattern follows. This one doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't feel aggressive. It doesn't even feel threatening at first. It's subtle, strategic, harder to detect. He starts comparing, not directly, not in a way that sounds cruel, casually. "Jessica at work really understands me. Some women actually know how to communicate. Mark's girlfriend never questions him like this." He may even smile when he says it. It sounds harmless, but comparison in male psychology is rarely random. Men don't casually highlight other women's strengths in emotionally neutral seasons. When emotional attention begins to shift, language reflects it before behavior fully does. A man doesn't wake up one morning completely detached. He drifts. and drift shows up in speech long before it shows up in action. You'll hear it in how often another woman's name appears. You'll notice how admiration slips into ordinary conversation. You'll feel a subtle tension when he says it, like he's testing how it lands. And this is where many women misinterpret the moment. They hear comparison and internalize it. I need to improve. I need to communicate better. I need to try harder. I need to compete. But comparison in this context isn't a request, it's a contrast. He's mentally measuring two emotional experiences. He's weighing how he feels here versus how he feels there. And you're no longer the only emotional reference point in his mind. That shift matters, because once comparison enters repeatedly, loyalty begins to weaken internally, even if nothing physical has happened yet. Then come the justifications, and this is where things become more revealing. Relationships are complicated. People make mistakes. No one is perfect. Sometimes things just happen. On their own, these statements sound mature, balanced, philosophical, but context always reveals intention. Why is he softening betrayal before betrayal is even discussed? Why is he normalizing mistakes before any mistake has been exposed? Because guilt prepares the ground before truth surfaces. When a man's actions begin to conflict with his values, his language bends first. He starts creating mental flexibility. He starts introducing gray areas. He might say, I just need space. I feel trapped lately. I need freedom to figure myself out. I don't know if I'm happy. On the surface, it sounds like self-reflection, like growth, like emotional awareness, but often it's permission disguised as maturity. Distance creates opportunity, and language creates justification. When he repeatedly emphasizes space, independence, or feeling confined, especially without clear relationship conflict, it can signal internal preparation. Preparation for emotional or physical separation. And then comes the most dangerous shift of all. He rewrites history. We were never really that happy. You've changed. I've never understood you. It hasn't felt right for a long time. We've had problems for years. Notice the absolutes. Never, always, for a long time. This isn't a balanced reflection. It's narrative reconstruction. He's editing the past to make the present feel less wrong. Because if he convinces himself the relationship was already broken, if he convinces himself he was already unhappy, if he reframes the story so you were incompatible all along, his guilt feels lighter. Betrayal becomes easier to justify when the relationship is redefined as flawed from the beginning. This is how betrayal protects itself psychologically. It doesn't just change behavior, it changes memory. And once memory is reshaped, accountability feels optional. But here's the critical truth. Healthy reflection includes shared responsibility. Narrative reconstruction removes it. If every problem becomes your fault, if every past joy becomes minimized, if every memory becomes distorted, something deeper is happening internally. And as guilt grows heavier, something even more obvious begins to happen. Language doesn't just bend anymore. It either expands beyond necessity or collapses completely. And that's where the next shift becomes impossible to ignore.
Overexplaining, silence, and the leak of guilt. When a man is living a double emotional life, neutrality becomes almost impossible, because internally he's divided. Part of him wants to maintain the relationship. Part of him is investing somewhere else, emotionally, mentally, or physically. And when a person is divided like that, their language can't stay steady. So he does one of two things. He says too much, or almost nothing at all. There's rarely a balanced middle. Let's start with overexplaining. You ask something simple. How was your night? A neutral question. Calm. Ordinary. Instead of, good, just work, you get, well, I stayed late finishing a project, then grabbed food near the station, ran into an old colleague, not anyone important. We only talked for about 20 minutes, nothing serious. Then traffic was bad, my phone died, that's why I didn't text back right away. You didn't ask for a breakdown. You asked for a summary. But when someone feels guilty, simple answers feel dangerous. Because silence leaves space, and space allows suspicion to grow. So he fills that space with excessive detail. Extra details don't create clarity, they create camouflage. Notice the structure of it. He anticipates questions you haven't asked. He answers objections you haven't raised. He adds disclaimers before accusations exist. Nothing serious, not anyone important, don't read into it. That's not transparency. That's a preemptive defense. His rhythm changes. His responses feel rehearsed, almost preloaded, like he prepared for an interrogation that never happened. And you may not consciously detect it at first, but you feel it. It sounds like a performance, not presence. A man who has nothing to hide answers directly. A man who feels exposed manages perception. Now let's look at the opposite extreme, silence. Topics that used to feel light and normal suddenly feel loaded. You mention a certain name, he stiffens. You ask about his day, irritation flashes across his face. You bring up something small, and it escalates. I don't want to talk about this. Can we not do this right now? You're always starting something. I'm tired of these conversations. That's not boundary setting, that's avoidance. When certain subjects consistently trigger emotional tension, there's usually something attached to them internally. Avoidance isn't random, it's protective. Because talking calmly requires consistency between words and reality, and if those two aren't aligned, silence feels safer. Then comes one of the most revealing leaks of all, unprompted reassurance. Out of nowhere, during an ordinary moment, he says, "You know I'd never cheat on you, right? You trust me, don't you? I'm not like other guys." You weren't accusing him. You weren't suspicious. You weren't even discussing loyalty. But guilt checks the temperature. It wants confirmation that it hasn't been detected. It wants reassurance that the performance is still convincing. And finally, there's the shift in how he talks about the future. This is subtle but powerful. His language becomes vague, undefined, detached. We'll see what happens. Let's not plan too far ahead. I don't know where I'll be in a year. I'm just taking life as it comes. A man who feels grounded in the relationship speaks with direction. He makes plans. He talks about we. He envisions continuity. A man who is drifting speaks with ambiguity, because deep down he's unsure which life he intends to keep. The present becomes unstable, and the future becomes foggy. Here's the deeper truth most people ignore. Human beings cannot live comfortably in contradiction. When behavior clashes with values, pressure builds internally, and pressure must escape. It escapes through speech. That's why guilt speaks in defensiveness, why comparisons slip out, why history gets rewritten, why explanations grow longer, why silence grows heavier, why the future becomes unclear. Language is the first place guilt leaks. If you've been doubting yourself, stop. You weren't paranoid, you were attentive. This isn't about spying, it's not about obsessing, it's not about catching him in a trap. It's about noticing when his words start working harder than reality requires, when answers feel managed instead of natural, when reassurance feels forced instead of steady, because long before actions are exposed, guilt always speaks. If this video resonated with you and gave you clarity about emotional infidelity, don't keep it to yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced something like this? Your story could help someone else see the signs before it's too late. Give this video a like if it helped you understand the subtle ways trust can be broken. Every like supports this channel and helps us reach more people who need guidance. And make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video on building healthier relationships and protecting your emotional well-being. If you know someone who might benefit from this insight, share this video with them. Sometimes awareness is the first step to saving a relationship or protecting your heart. Remember, you deserve to be seen, valued, and prioritized in your relationship. Don't settle for anything less.